Hi, it's appropriate that I'm wearing a shirt that kind of merges into the furniture because last week I watched the very fashion conscious new version of Cruella, a film that no one really thought that we needed and yet was a surprise hit at the box office last summer. It's a prequel to 101 Dalmatians and stars Emma Stone as the young Cruella, or Estella, to give her real name, and we follow her from her youth of being raised in a small uh, country cottage by a doting mother, no father in the picture, her black and white hair being natural, but she has a flair for fashion design and eventually is going to travel to London to join a boarding school. But on the way, her mother stops off at her old employer, a cruel fashion designer named the Baroness, played by Emma Thompson. And while there, her mother is apparently killed in an accident involving some Dalmatians. Uh, young Estella runs away to London and falls in with two thieves, Horace and Jasper. And over time, they form a surrogate family, using Horace and Jasper's thieving skills and Estella's knack for design to create intriguing disguises for them. But eventually, Estella is able to get a real job at Liberties of London, the famous department store, which brings her into the orbit of the Baroness and her hopes that she can make it in the fashion world. But there are secrets yet to be uncovered about her past and the true nature of her background. Now, all of this sounds terrible for a children's film. It's also the first half hour or less of the film. This is a very dense film. The best way to approach this is to completely ignore any previous existing material. It's very different in tone from 101 Dalmatians. It's not a children's film. um, we have the unusual choice of setting it in the 1970s, and the film is, as a result, filled with early 70s rock music. We have the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, um, many other artists, the names of who escape me. Um, and at one point, Estella frequents a shop run by a character who is very, very, very obviously coded as gay. It's just never stated outright. He models himself almost as if he's Stardust and wears makeup, which for a Disney movie, branded with the Disney logo on the front, it's not some Touchstone Pictures presents or anything like that, is a bit more challenging than the Josh Gad holding hands moment so easily removed from Beauty and the Beast. Um, Emma Stone, sorry, is fantastic. One of the best performances I've seen this year. Her version of Estella has so much depth and layers, and she goes through such a tremendous emotional journey over the course of the film, from innocent to criminal to going darker and darker, but still having a shred of goodness, a shred of righteous vengeance within her, as she starts to embrace the darker side of her personality to get what she wants, to get the revenge that she believes she deserves. Um, Emma Thompson's character is it's a little bit Emma Thompson by numbers. The character doesn't really have a great deal of depth, but she's good in the role. But the plot is something that really intrigued me. It's very dense, it's very layered, it's surprisingly complex for a children's film. I was really totally engaged right from the start, and it looks fantastic. There is this neo retro production design so that it's set in the 70s and there's a lot of 70s style fashions. There's a lot of inspiration in the fashion design from um, Vivienne Westwood and punk movement, so that Estella, or Cruella as she brands herself to retain her anonymity as a designer, um, develops this sort of punk aesthetic. Again, Disney movie. Um, Her relationship with Horace and Jasper, who are in 101 Dalmatians, are just her two idiot henchmen. Here are fully fleshed out, interesting and engaging characters played by Joel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser. Hauser's accent, incidentally, is excellent. He's an American, but he's playing an Englishman, and he's a flawless London accent. I was very impressed. Um, it's a really strange film because there's no reason why anyone would have thought this was a good idea, and yet it works so well. I was totally engaged all the way through. I found it completely compelling. Emma Stone is fantastic, one of the best performances of the year. It looks great. It has a really interesting, strong storyline. Once you get over the fact that it's a prequel to 101 Dalmatians, I mean, it's rather like how my podcast guest, Phil Reiser, thought of the film version of The Saint that I made him watch. Um, it's a very, very good film, but you have to divorce it from its source material because it doesn't really match that. In the same way, this doesn't really match with 101 Dalmatians. Neither the original book nor any of the film versions, which are light-hearted children's stories. This is a dark, introspective, Tim Burton-y, but not that Tim Burton-y because it still feels loosely grounded take on the same material. It's surprisingly good. um, and I wouldn't recommend it for children. I don't think it's suitable. I don't think it's really interesting enough because a lot of it is quite dark and introspective and more character based and more dramatic. But as a alternative take on classic material, I think it's very intriguing, very engaging, and possibly one of the best films of the last year.